Perfect. And we are live. So before we introduce each other, I'm going to put you on the spot. What is the future like Monday morning?
Wonderful. Absolutely delightful. There's protest there, chaos in the streets. Nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed, but it's probably beautiful there, right? Except for, is it winter
there? We're in now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
I'm jealous.
Our winters are very different as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's right.
Yeah, ours is like rain.
It's not like us here in Canada where we've got like 6 feet of snow on our lawns all year or all winter long for like 6 to 8 months, and it's like minus 47 and absolutely. Well, perfect. We are here with some fantastic people. We have Deep, Mona, and Amy that are wonderful horror authors that have come to chat with me today. So while we're waiting for some people to come in, why don't we go ahead and introduce ourselves? Deep, do you want to introduce yourself and tell a little bit about your work?
Yeah, sure, definitely. My name is Deep Arya. I'm the author of The Overbridge. I stacked up before we started. Broken Rock. And of course, my last book was a collection of short stories, Don't Trust Bees. There you go. That's really it from me. I'm just an author and I've just started. I've only been writing for 2 years, and I like writing atmospheric and weird fiction.
Which is really good. I need to get that bees one. I love the cover on it, and I have to get all of yours in physical copy because I've got 2 of them, but they're on ebook, and they're all fantastic copies. So I have to get those covers on my shelves so I can show them off. How about you, Mona? Do you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your work? She's been just like cracking out stuff left and right.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Mona Cavani. I also go by Morality and Horror on Instagram and Morality and Horror on Twitter because Twitter doesn't allow a full 11 letters or characters for a username. But I'm a psychological horror author, so I write really like character in-depth stories, and my publications right now are The Bell Chime, which actually just won a Ladies of Horror Fiction Award for Best Novella of 2020, which I'm really proud of. Thank you. Thank you so much. And then also Vanilla is my most recent publication in March, and that was like a full-blown novel. But they're both just very psychological based. They have those horror elements, but it's also really about like the ride that the characters go through psychological wise as I introduce them to like chaotic environments.
Mind-bending. I love psychological horror and thriller so much. That whole mind-bending, like play with your head aspect where the reader's sitting there staring at the end white pages thinking, what the heck just happened?
Yeah, I got that a lot from Bell Chime. Like people would be like, I can't write a review yet because I need to process what the hell just happened. And I'm like, good, I did my job.
I was going to say, do you take that as a compliment? Or?
I do, yeah. I'm like, I fucked you up, cool, that was my job.
Yeah.
Come back for more next time.
Well, that's exciting. How about you, Amy? Do you want to introduce yourself and a little bit about your work?
Absolutely. Hi, my name is Amy Grech. I've been a published author of horror and crime fiction for over 20 years. I've had 2 short story collections, Apple of My Eye and Rage Redemption Alphabet City. Unfortunately, both are now out of print, but I have a copy of Rage Redemption Alphabet City on eBay, and I've had over 100 short stories published. I've been in a lot of anthologies. Yes, thank you. A lot of anthologies recently. The One That Got Away anthology, which is all female contributors. Then there's one, Flashes of Hope, which is sort of quiet, harsh stories. Teresa Derwin is the editor of that one. I also have a poem in Hell's Mall. April Gray is the editor. That's a whole series of Hell's anthologies. I've had stories in several. There was also Hell's Kitties. I have a story in Hell's Grannies, Hell's Highway, a couple of others that I didn't have pieces that fit, but she did one stories around music called Hell's Bells. And more recently, I just got my contributor's copy of Gorefest, which is an anthology of splatterpunk fiction.
Ooh.
Yeah, so my story is a twist on Russian roulette.
Well, that sounds fun.
Yes, it was a fun one to write. I have a website. It's crimsonscreams.com, and I'm on Twitter, Amy_Grech at Twitter.
Perfect. I love that you and Mona both mentioned, your social medias. I will make sure for anyone that's watching, whether you're watching now or watching after the fact, once this live show is over, I will make sure to put everyone's socials in the description, so it's a quick, easy click for everyone, so you can go and find these lovely people, go and support them on all their social media platforms, and go buy their books and read them and leave reviews, because that is the most important part of all of this for us readers. I'm just going to say hi to everyone that popped into the chat so far. We do have Heidi here. Thank you for coming by. Heidi, you are such a fantastic, lovely supporter. Mwah! I love you. We've got Linda that's popped into the chat as well. Again, a lovely supporter. She's here all the time. She's my bestie. And we do have LJ Doherty. LJ, thank you for coming and hanging out with us as well. If anybody that's in the chat has questions, feel free to pop them.
Pop them into the chat.
You guys, yeah.
Pick our brain.
Pick your brain, and then everything kind of reset. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Oh, weird. It must. I bet you it's because it's Sunday. I'm probably gonna have tons of problems with the internet. I guarantee it.
No worries.
It's okay. Yeah.
So this is the lovely people that we are spotlighting, and of course we want to pick their brains. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. First and foremost, I'm going to give you the question that I'm sure all of you guys have probably answered time and time again. Did you always have a passion for writing, and did you always want to get your stories out there and become an author? Should we just go in the same order, or do we want anyone to jump in for it? Same order? Sounds good. So deep, you're going to always be on the first pressure, you know?
How do I answer this? Yes and no. I've always enjoyed telling stories. You know how you always sit down with your friends and just share ideas, and if I could write a film, I would do this, or if I could do that. And then I just thought to myself, well, why don't I just do it? I've read so many authors, and I thought to myself, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And I had a great teacher who said every voice is unique, and it doesn't matter if your ideas to you might sound like they're not original, but the way you say it, the way you write it, they'll be unique to you. So then I just took it on board and did it. That's really as simple as I can keep it.
That's really exciting. How about you, Mona? Did you always want to write?
When I was younger, I used to write a lot. I'd write like fan fiction or just like angsty pieces, just kind of like almost like for a therapeutic release. Obviously, when you're in middle school and you're younger, you have a lot of angst and, you know, emotions that are filling up. So there's different ways to go about expelling that, and kind of having a therapeutic relationship with that. And for me, it was writing, but like the stuff I was writing, I would never want anyone to like lay their eyes on, not because it's like anything highly horrific, but it was just very like personal things. So like the writing process, or just like writing in general, was something that it was always had a connection to me and that I enjoyed. And of course I enjoyed reading. And then I got into horror immensely, probably like middle of high school, and then college like really blew up on it. And after that, I was watching so much horror. I was like, oh, I have some ideas that like kind of are like this movie, but I would maybe like go in this direction if I were to have written it. Or I really like this premise or this trope or this idea, but like maybe if I put it in a different world or had like characters like this. And then that's when I started coming up with more fiction like stories. And with that, I was like, well, why not share that and just see what the heck happens? And yeah.
And now here you are.
And now here I am.
People are reading your stuff and loving it. And just,
yeah.
I mean, I see your stuff everywhere, which is really exciting.
Thank you.
How about you, Amy? What got you into writing? Was it always a passion, or is it just something that came up?
No, I was always an avid reader, starting at a very young age. And then the turning point, there were a couple of turning points. I was raised Catholic. Some of those Bible stories, right, are downright terrifying. Cain and Abel, and, you know, I won't list them all. But another turning point was just a road trip with my family. My brother and me were 12. I have a twin brother. He's not a writer. But yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's different, though, to grow up with someone who's just a minute older than you, but that could be a whole other conversation. But on this road trip, we were visiting an aunt with our parents and in Kingston, New York. And she handed me 2 Stephen King's novels. I was 12, remember, and she gave me Cujo and Pet Sematary. And from there, I was hooked. And in high school, I thought, why don't I try my hand at creating some stories of my own? And so I did. And then in college, I started publishing in local small press. Before I knew you were supposed to get paid. And that only happened once. And then it occurred to me that, yeah, I should be getting paid. And so I worked my way up the ranks in the small press. And here we are.
Well, that's exciting. It's so neat to hear how people started. Sometimes it's, no, it wasn't really my thing. And then all of a sudden it's just something clicked for me, or, something that you dreamed of, like a little girl dreaming of her wedding day. I was not one of those little girls.
Me neither. But...
Me neither.
Really? I don't believe it. I was going to say, I don't know. You probably would have a very unique wedding because you would have a great time with your sense of humor.
Oh, yeah. Culturally, it'd be like, do you like that girl? Yes, married.
So how about...
So eye contact was never happening.
I don't, never, ever, not once. So what pulled you guys into like writing within the dark fiction, the horror? Is it just something that, just kind of sunk its teeth into you and then that was it? You were stuck there? Or is it something that you love, but you plan on dabbling into some other things later on? Again, Deep, you're in the hot spot first and foremost.
Look, I'll be honest. I absolutely love horror. I love every type of horror. For me, I was really influenced by my grandparents and the old cultural folklores and monsters that exist. I think one of the biggest influence for me about why I write horror and why I love horror was I was influenced by the 20s, 30s, and 40 films, the black and white films, and how they used shadows and how they set tones and scenes. And I was just like, I'm in love. And that's why I think I moved more towards the atmospheric side of horror and in elements of weird fiction, because I just wanted the atmosphere to be its own character rather than the human characters driving the story. I wanted, the car, the fog, the bridge, whatever, to be alive, just to be there. And that's what really inspired me to write horror. But I love every type of horror. I don't think I've never actually said to myself, I hate that one, or I'm not a big fan of it. It's like a buffet. Pick what you like.
Isn't it ever? There's so many subgenres within the horror genre that it's just like there is something for everyone out there. And every time somebody comes to me and says, I don't read horror, I'm like, listen, I used to be one of those people that said that. That changed. And now look where I am. So, I mean, there's something for everyone out there, whether it's body horror, cosmic horror, psychological. There is so much out there, and it's like a delicious goodness that I just will never get rid of now. How about you, Mona? What pulled you into the psychological part of things, or do you plan on dabbling in some other stuff later on?
Well, so I'm kind of like the black sheep of my family, and like in a good way, like they love me very much, but I'm probably the only one in my family who's like addicted and obsessed with horror, to the point where like I do watch other things, but if my family sits down and is like, hey, let's watch a movie, what do you want to watch? They're like, oh, we already know what she's going to say. It's going to be horror. Like I'm always like that. So I do love like every facet under the umbrella of horror, but I think for me, the stuff that lasted with me the longest was like the psychological type horrors. And I just liked that feeling of, it wasn't just during the film or whatever I'm reading or etc. It was like afterwards I'd be like, ooh, like I feel kind of like icky, or like I'm still like kind of sad, or feeling those emotions or whatever it was that piece was trying to elicit. But I thought that that's kind of like a very genius way to go about horror. And I had like some ideas, and I do love like thriller and like action types as well. So yeah, I kind of just wanted to try my own hand at it and combine just like my love for horror and then do that like whole psychological. But like some of my stuff is a little bit thriller too. Like the Bell Chime's very thriller, although Vanilla is like a little bit more of like a slow burn psychological. But it was just, yeah, that passion for both horror but also like in-depth psychological.
I have to get my hands on Vanilla. I feel so bad. I still haven't read the Bell Chime. I bought it right when it came out, and it's still sitting on that like forever long waiting list. But I mean, the cover and the synopsis. Oh my goodness, you guys are gonna make me go broke. I tell you, I have to remortgage my house to buy all these books.
Oh no, yeah, and no worries. I'm a reviewer too, so it's I totally understand that endless TBR, and then you just get more shit, and you're just yes, give me all of it. But also crying because I'm literally looking at my floor of my apartment right now, and there's a stack of books because my bookshelves. I have 3 bookshelves actually. And even that's overflowing, and they're all over my floor, and I'm just I want it all, but it's everywhere.
Isn't it true? There's stacks everywhere. You guys have no idea how many stacks are behind the camera. You guys don't see behind the scenes stuff, but it's true. And so many authors also review, so it's kind of nice because the authors that review for others as well, they understand that list, right? So they're oh, you know what, no worries. Oh, poor Deep. I still haven't even finished the other one, but he gave me his books, or I think I purchased them on Kindle when we connected, forever ago when they first were coming out, and I'm oh yeah, I'll get to them, and I think I just finally reviewed, a few months back, the first one that I read, and I'm I'm sorry, but he's just so chill about it. He's yeah, no worries, thanks for the review, and that's what feels good for reviewers. So it's nice when authors understand that, because I can't say no. I mean, all this brilliant stuff that's coming out, how do you say no? Sorry, I can't. No, see you later, sayonara.
And of course, we're very appreciative of your time. So it's an honor to have you even pick up the work to begin with. So of course, thank you for that, and obviously having us on here and doing things like this.
Well, and that would be my superhero of choice if I could, to read 10 books at a time, and to be able to really retain it all. Yeah. And get through them that and move on to the next set. So, you could devour every single thing out there. Either that or no sleep. But I've contemplated that, and I love my sleep. So I don't know if I could do that. Hey, thanks for coming by. Iron Rain of Books. Daniel's in the house. How about you, Amy?
Yeah, Mona and Deep, I love to delve into the dark recesses of the mind. The psyche can be such a dark place. Mm-hmm. I specialize also in psychological horror, and I do have a cannibalism story in the anthology that I mentioned, Flashes of Hope. My story is entitled Perishables. And it takes place after a nuclear disaster, and the lead characters holed up in the basement. And
I love that title.
Yes, I love that title. Thank you. It has a dual meaning. I don't want to ruin the surprise of the story, but you will have a newfound respect for finger food after reading it all day. And excuse me, I actually have branched out into crime fiction. My now defunct collection, Rage and Redemption, Alphabet City, I decided not to renew with the publisher. I'll take the high road. They actually don't exist anymore. But I started watching a lot of shows, detective shows like Lieutenant Joe Kenda, here in the States on Discovery ID, the crime channel. I call it the murder channel because there's so many shows. There's one show called Fear Thy Roommate, where someone will take in maybe someone who's down on their luck, and then things just will escalate to a bloody end. And then there's another show, Fear Thy Neighbor, and there's Dangerous Women, women who create all these horrible atrocities. So it's pretty fascinating. And after watching these shows, I decided to branch out because horror and crime fiction, they can be pretty deeply intertwined as well. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
But the difference that I've noticed in writing and publishing crime fiction is focuses more on the antagonist, and they're not just their dastardly deeds, but maybe their backstory. How did they come to embrace their id?
Absolutely. No, I agree. The crime fiction and the psychological, to me, sometimes can be some of the most scary things you can talk about or read, because it's so realistic, even if it is fiction and you haven't dove into, true crime. It's so terrifying because these things happen in real life. Like some of them are inspired by things that happen in real life. So sometimes that's the most scary things you can dive into when it comes into the horror world. We talked a little bit about family when Mona was mentioning that she was the only horror lover in her house. Do your families do they support what you do? Not necessarily that they have to read what you put out there, but even just giving you the time to sneak away and write and do your thing, to work on your work, or is it kind of hard at times? Do you find it challenging to get that time to work on your stuff and get it out there? Sorry, Deep, you're on the hot spot again.
I should know this. I'm like, it's going to go somewhere else, but of course it's going to be me. My care, because they're very culturally different. So for them, it's like, as long as his full-time job is there, we're not really fussed. My wife, totally fine. She actually does not actually care. Like, she's supportive, but she's like, I'm not going to read your stuff. You just do what you need to do. She's like, I got other things.
I love that.
My siblings are amazing. They're very supportive. My brother actually helped make my website, so horrorisweird.com. So he was the one who supported me in doing that. And my sister is very supportive as well, and she helps me out here and there. But beyond that, no, my cousins, first time I told them to be an author, they mocked the shit out of me. Yeah. They just thought it was a stupid thing. It's not going to happen. Get over it. You're brown. Most authors that was their response.
No.
They go, unless you put a white name as your pseudonym. So yeah, no, that's literally it. My grandparents, I only got one living grandparent left, but they were the reason. That was the main reason, because they used to just tell horror stories all the time. That was their way of putting. I don't know why, but yeah, let me tell you a story about 3 witches that sat in a tree and devoured kids who walked past. Good night.
Sweet dreams, Deep. I hope you don't have any nightmares, or maybe you do, and maybe it will become a book one day. Well, that's really well. I disagree with that, and so now all of your cousins, you could just rub it in their face and be like, "Yeah, well, look at me now." Just send them to all of the people that have reviewed your book and be like, yeah, look at this person's reading my stuff and reviewing it. You said I couldn't do it, but I did it. Yeah. How about you, Mona? Are they supportive, whether they read your work or just give you the time to sit down and work on it?
My parents are very supportive. I started writing in college, so I was away from them anyway. So there wasn't really, when I began the whole process, I didn't immediately come out and say, hey, I want to be an author and write. I kind of just did it myself to see where it could go. I didn't really announce it very much to anyone. And then I spoke to my parents about it, and they were like, that's great, cool. So full-time job, right? And I was like, yeah, I still got the full-time job. Exactly what Deep was saying. I still have the full-time job. Don't worry. Now they've seen how much success I have, and not that they weren't supportive before, but now more so. My dad's always like, hey, did you see that you could have you thought about looking into that? He gives me marketing tips and other things too. And they're very much you're going to do it. It's great. My parents, and my parents do read everything I write. Not that I beg them to, and sometimes I'm like, ooh, I hope you don't think I'm fucked up, but okay, cool. Yes, read it, please. My mom actually, when I publish my books, my dad sends them to all his friends, which is very nice. And then my mom, she runs an opera guild, or she's a part of this opera guild of ladies in Florida. And she actually wanted to do a book club with the bell chime. So she had all of these very wonderful, sweet opera ladies read my fucked up psychological horror book in a little book club that she had. And then we did a discussion. They wanted me to come join over Zoom, a group chat discussion with all of them. And they all loved it, which was a great outcome. I mean, the bell chime's probably the least
I was going to say.
Yeah. But they all loved it. They were like, I didn't realize that horror could be like this, that it wasn't just slashers killing half naked girls. And I was like, no, it's not. I mean, that's great too, but it's not like that all the time. And they all were like, I think I like horror now. And I'm like, great. And it's it was a very supportive thing she did. And I'm very thankful for that. But yeah, they it's just funny because I'm actually the one that kind of pushes back sometimes, where I'm like, please don't tell your normal friends who maybe do not like horror at all that your daughter writes these things, and give it to them. And then all of a sudden they're like, what do you do? What did you do to your your daughter? Like that she's writing this stuff. But everyone's like loved it. It's probably just me being like cautious. No, but they're extremely supportive, and they're like the greatest parents. So I'm very blessed.
That is the cutest. I was gonna say they probably all loved it. These sweet little ladies are just like, oh my goodness, this
Yeah.
Now
I mean,
watch
everyone
them
has a
in
dark
Garden of Horror
side.
and you're gonna find
Yeah.
the wrong side.
Exactly.
We
They're gonna-
all
yeah.
do. I don't care how cheerful and happy you seem, or how you're always smiling, or you're always, dressed to the nines. There's gonna be some type of dark side, hands down. That's too funny. Hey Dave, thanks for coming in. I know he read the bell chime and absolutely loved it. Hey all, Mona, totally relate. Hey Amanda, thanks for coming in. How about you, Amy? Is your family really supportive? Give you time to sit down and write, or?
Well, I mentioned my aunt who introduced me to Stephen King. She's always been supportive, and she buys my books. My parents, unfortunately, they're older, so they're old school. So they said, why don't you write children's stories? And I actually sold a children's story. I forget which publication, sort of placate them. But then they realized, oh, it's not just a hobby. Look, she's got this book out now. She's in all these books. And then they sort of came around and warmed up. And I'm pretty excited. The anthology, the one that got away, is actually being taught at Butler University. It's on the curriculum there.
I didn't know
Very
that. That's
cool.
really exciting.
Wow.
So I'm shaping young minds. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities. And actually, the one thing I did that my family didn't really like is I used my sister-in-law's maiden name in a story. And she's like, oh, why'd you do that? I'm like, oh, Kiernan, it's like Smith for English, for British folks. She's Irish. And I said, maybe that wasn't you. I had to cover my tracks a little bit.
That's too funny. I didn't know that. That's really exciting. I can't wait to read that anthology and to know that it's on the curriculum there. I mean, why didn't they do stuff like that when I was in school? I mean,
I know.
This is the stuff I would have loved to have been reading.
Speaking of college, on a similar note, I graduated from Ithaca College, and one of the electives I got to take as an English major was the history of horror.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and introduced me to H.P. Lovecraft, Franz Kafka, revisited Poe. Most people have read Edgar Allan Poe in high school. And Shirley Jackson, not just The Lottery, but her other works. So it was a great experience.
I'll be honest, here in Canada, what we get to read for school is nothing like it is in the States. Like, we didn't get to read any Poe, nothing like that. That was not part of our curriculum. A lot of the stuff that you guys had as part of your curriculum, we didn't read. I honestly don't know of any books when I was going to school that were actually part of the curriculum. It was just, hey, as long as you sit down and read for 10, 15 minutes, here you go. So it kind of makes me sad in that way, because it would have been nice to experience those things, even though if it was, anything from poetry or anything, I would have been right into that. So that's the one thing that sucks about the schooling here, or the education here, I guess. I don't know if that's changed now. I guess we'll see. But something Amy said kind of moves into another question I had for you guys is inspirations, but not just necessarily like author inspirations or literature inspirations, but even maybe like somebody outside of the writing world that inspires you. I have a feeling I'm going to know exactly who Deep is going to pick, because I've asked him a lot of these questions before. But
Maybe I'll surprise you.
Maybe you will. Okay, so who are some of your author inspirations, or who is somebody that maybe inspired your writing style, and somebody that is not in the writing world, whether it's somebody that that's close to you, maybe it's an actor, who knows?
Go, Mona.
Shit.
Oh my god, I got Mona's on the spot now. All right.
Skipping. Uh-oh.
I mean, I definitely think, like, in terms of like the writing style, like King, I don't always love all of his works, I will say. And whenever I say that, I'm always like, okay, don't like shit on me. But then whenever I do say it, people are like, no, I agree with that. I don't love everything. But like his ability, like his writing like sentence structure, like just like how he makes any story very easy to read. I think I really like that. But I also really like kind of more poetic writing. So like from like classics, like how Edgar Allan Poe writes and things like that. So I try to find like a balance between those two. And that would be like probably my writing style. But as far as inspiration, like I really take inspiration from just like life in general, which probably is such like a cop out of an answer. But typically like how I get my ideas is that I'll interact in a situation and something about it maybe is disagreeable, or I'm just like taking avenge in some way out on like some people that I just don't agree with maybe like their mentalities or whatnot. And then I'm like, well, what if this situation, and I like took it and I turned it and then I like killed everyone. No, I was kidding. But like, you know, like kind of twisting.
I like that. I was like, hey, can I be one of them?
Dude, it's so fun. I made this like one thing that was like, I made a reel on Instagram that I was like, if you do like wrong me, it was just like a joke, but I was like, if you wrong me, like you might be in my next horror book and I'll kill you off. And the amount of people that commented that were like, kill me. I was like, okay. That's why I love this community.
Isn't it weird how we all want to find out how authors would kill us, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
what would you do to me? I want to know this.
Like, fuck a horoscope. Like, how would you kill me? Like,
on the horror school.
There you go. Exactly. Someone take notes. But yeah, so I think it's more so just like, especially since I'm a little bit more about like the psychological, and I really want to write things that like people relate to the point where it's like, oh, I know that this is a situation that could never occur just because of like the paranormal elements or whatnot, but I relate so well to these characters that a part of that still affects me. And I like to take more so inspiration just from like life and daily interactions and things that bug me and other normal people in turn, and kind of put that into my stories.
Oh, I love that. And so you don't even have necessarily like one specific person in your life. It's just people in general that you have experiences with. Oh, I love that. So are you like a people watcher? Do you know?
I definitely am. And I do love people. Like, I'm not saying that I'm just like, everyone's evil and I'm going to kill you all. Like I also will take, like, if I see someone that like took
There's nothing wrong with that.
But I'm saying that like, I see good in people too. And I'll include that as, let's say, a juxtaposition to the bad in the story. Right. So it's not always negative. But yeah, it's definitely like inspiration from persons themselves and for sure. Yeah.
Oh, I love that answer, because usually, you know, there's always that one specific person, which is always great, because knowing that you have people that inspire you in life, I mean, who doesn't have that? But just to see that, you know, you have that talent to take inspiration from so many things that happen around you, or even just from seeing something, that's really exciting. That's a talent to have. You hold on to that. Teach me. I don't write, but teach me, because
Got you.
Yeah, I could find a way to move that into my life somehow, even though I don't write. Are you ready, Deep? Do you want to answer now, or
Sure.
is it move on to Amy?
Let's go with Amy. I want to hear her.
Oh,
okay, Amy.
Okay. Well, like Mona, I grew up reading Stephen King. So when I first started writing, before I published any works, I was sort of emulating his style in the background. And then I found my own voice over time. But for me, I've lived in New York City for over 20 years. So the city is a character in a lot of my stories. For example, my novella, Rage Redemption Alphabet City, is set in Alphabet City, which is the East Village of New York City. And a quick little aside that's relevant, but the further you go, there's Avenue A, Avenue B, Avenue C, Avenue D. So I did some research. I said, oh, they have to stand for something. And they actually do. Avenue A stands for aware. Avenue B stands for beware. Avenue C stands for caution. And Avenue D stands for death.
Is that real? Really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
I Googled it. And so that figures into the story because the main character lives on Avenue D, and some foreshadowing, but there's a lot of twists along the way. And then other stories of mine, one takes place in Hell's Kitchen, which is, it used to be a really gritty neighborhood. Now they've gentrified it and they call it Clintonville or something. Like, what happened there now? I like Hell's Kitchen better. So yeah, you know, the city, the weather, buildings, It's like there's so much rich, such a rich environment in New York City. So it figures heavily in my stories.
New York is on my bucket list, hands down. That's one place I would love to be able to visit before I die, but who knows, because Mona may kill me off before that happens. And I see Dave's warning me to never get into an elevator.
Oh my God. Yeah, you have to read the book. I was like cracking up because I read that and I was like, oh my God, I would not, I don't want to ruin it for anyone, but I would not do that to you in an elevator. Do not worry.
Yeah, if anyone's ever answering and you find people breaking out laughing, it's usually because somebody has said something really funny in the comments. We're not laughing at you. I always feel bad. There's a couple people that will come in the chat and some of the things they say, oh my goodness, I can't stop laughing. And I feel so bad because the author's giving this, you know, honest, educational answer to a question. And here I'm just in there just giggling. The background. Oh, you guys are hilarious. Okay, so yeah, I do need to read it. Absolutely. I remember watching Dave's review of it and I was like, oh, I have had that on my list forever.
I love that review. That's my favorite video review. Yeah.
Olive.
So Olive was wearing the little bell and like running around. I was like, oh, this is the greatest thing. Yeah.
I love his reviews. Hands down, he's one of my favorite booktubers. And I know he's newer, but he deserves to have like a huge following because his reviews are spot on, very educational. Like, you know, he really gives, you know, the good and the bad of what he thought of a book and really shares his opinion. And it always helps me decide whether it's something that I want to pick up if it's not something that I've read before myself. So, or I find myself thinking, I've got that book on my shelf too. Oh man, now I really got to pick it up. Yeah, and now we have him blushing. Good, just don't get into an elevator with Mona. Okay, Deep, can we come back to you? Inspirations, whether they're people or things around you, something maybe, you know, if you want to share, you know, author-wise, who's inspired you with their writing, or somebody that's family member, anything.
Yeah, definitely. Stephen King, not as much. A lot of people do think Stephen King influenced me, but no, not really. I was more influenced by like H.G. Wells, Neil Gaiman. I always call his writing like blue collar writing. It's simple but yet profound. And when he writes horror, I do like Stephen King. Don't get me wrong. I do have some of his novels. It was probably the one that really kind of went whoa for me. But I absolutely love it. Non-authors, I would say I'm similar to the other two here, Amy and Mona. My background, I'm an educator, but I'm also used to be in well-being. So for me, I've seen the worst of the worst that can be done to, sadly, young kids. So I've been exposed to a lot of, innocent young children and the abuse that they went through, and that kind of made me realize that, the horrors that are out there. Also, I'm influenced by metaphysics. One of my hobbies is studying world religions. Don't worry, I'm not a fanatic. So don't worry.
But I've
studied world religion. Yeah, so I've studied world religion for 20 years. I've got books. I've read everything from metaphysics. That's why I love Ghostbusters so much, because of that parapsychology, parapsychology stuff. And I guess that's what influenced me was my writing. That whole, a lot of my characters or main characters are always debating, is the supernatural real, or is it a mental health thing that I'm going through right now? And that clash of, especially if you come from families who are really religious and you might not fall into that spectrum, and then you're debating in your mind when something does happen, is it natural or is it supernatural? And that was something that I really, really love. And I think that comes from the old writing styles as well, that whole skepticism and when science was like still, finding new things and studying new things and, pseudoscience. I absolutely love that. I'm obsessed with it, to be honest. To be honest with all of you.
Obsessions that really was good. They are good. It's neat that you say that, like knowing so much about, what awful things can happen to youth out there. Writing, I would assume, would be like a great outlet to lift off those life stresses of things that you've seen or experienced or heard, to be able to lift that weight off your shoulders while being artistic at the same time. I would assume, I'm not an author, but I would assume that would help lift off that weight and have that outlet. I know that's one thing for reading, is reading becomes a huge outlet to be able to talk with fellow people that enjoy reading these things, or sometimes you can really relate to something that you've read that might be in there, whether the author was being subtle or very direct in their writing. Speaking of which, do you guys enjoy when your readers come to you and talk to you about what they've read and how your work might have affected them, or something that might have touched them or really spoke to them? Or do you prefer just to read the reviews and see the reviews and kind of step back and see it all kind of fall into place? Let's
Amy?
pick on Amy. I was going to say, let's pick on Amy because she has to answer first.
That's good. Well, before COVID, I would attend a lot of conventions in New York and New Jersey, and I went to a couple of Stoker Cons, one in Rhode Island, one in Michigan. I prefer when my readers / fans come up to me at these conventions. I've got a table, let's say, with a couple of other authors, and they want to buy a book, and they're torn between a couple of them. And then I'll say, oh, who's the book for? And one guy said it was for his son, but it was my collection, Apple of My Eye, and the stories, a lot of them in there are very violent. And so after he bought the book and I signed it and he left, another author who knew my work intimately said it was for like his son, Billy, or I forget the kid's name. And so we were snickering, the other author and I, and she said, Billy's going to get quite the education. There's a lot of sex in the stories in Apple of My Eye. And I'm like, no, money, there we go, let's go. I mean, I don't just write exclusively for the money, but, when you have an opportunity at a convention to, sell your book to whoever happens to be there, you know what I mean? I hope so.
He'll be pleasantly surprised with what he reads.
Yeah. Now maybe I terrified him. Then I did my job, like Mona said earlier.
Maybe not, because I don't know. I know a lot of kids when I was growing up, you'd be watching TV and that warning would come up and say viewers' discretion is advised, and mainly the boys that I was friends with were like, that's when I wanted to stay there and watch.
Yep.
That's when I knew it was going to be good.
Absolutely.
Who wants to go next? D, Mona?
I can go next. I'm looking at Steve and he's like,
I've been on the hotspot. How many times now?
I think in terms of feedback, I do love it in all forms. I think with the bell chime the most, I got immediate instant messaging feedback of people, because the bell chime focuses heavily on mental health. Mm-hmm. But I took it away from the whole mental health as a trope, and are they actually mentally ill, or is it real, and et cetera. And I turned it more into hey, this is a mental health issue, anxiety, panic attacks, things that a lot of people experience to some degree in their day-to-day life. And there's nothing wrong with that. And here's just a character that's experiencing the situation, also having that issue. And I get a lot of people that will message me and be like, you gave me a panic attack. Thanks very much. But also thank you for writing a character in such a beautiful light that's experiencing something that I experience. And I see a lot of the times people using it instead as a trope for them being maybe insane or crazy. So that's really nice. I obviously love reading reviews. I'll often just Google myself on YouTube, which is how I found Book Blather also, which I literally typed in the bell chime because I just want to see my name, and I see these different people review, which you don't even hear about sometimes. It's just so unfortunate because you can't tag people on YouTube, or if you have your own website that you do reviews on, you can't. So I'll just do that just to see what, I don't know what people are thinking, but also I do, people take their times to create content to promote other authors and whatnot. So I really want to see what's going on with that. So I do really love it to that degree. So, I mean, and even the negative reviews, I think that there's a difference. And I think what some reviewers don't realize is that if you write a negative review for one of my books, let's say, because I can really only speak on myself, but it's more so that, the book was written this way, and that's just not something that was for me, but here it could be for you. Vanilla's very slow burn. It draws out a little bit. That's just how I wanted to write her. And I wouldn't want someone coming up to me being I think you should have written her this way. That's not really feedback I'd want, because it's okay, well, but that's not helpful because that's not my style. And if you want to take the story and do it your own way, kudos to you. But if someone writes a review and they're oh, I didn't really like enjoy it because it was too slow and I like more fast, short thing, that's like totally okay. And I want to hear that feedback too. Like, it's not going to hurt me or anything. Like, I'm a reviewer too, and I'm very aware that there are like different books for everyone. So like, I even like the negative feedback as long as it's just like respectful. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy it all in the end.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that, what you said about, and I mean, negative reviews, they sell. They
They
sell
do.
because, I mean, both negative and positive criticism is great, but reading, when I first started YouTube, I was always doing like book reviews, and that's what I would call them. And then I thought, but it's not like I'm reviewing an item like this, you know, like, did it come broken? Does the top work? Is the straw cracked? It's my own personal opinion. Reading is very subjective to you and your tastes. So I started calling them book opinions because it was wholeheartedly my opinion, and, you know, nobody else could tell me otherwise. But at the same time, it's not okay for a reviewer to tell an author what they feel their artistic piece should have been like either.
Yeah.
Right? So if you turn around and say, you know what, I don't like those slow burns, I like when it's fast paced. That's you 100%. That's your preference. But if anyone ever went to an author and said, nope, this is how it should have gone, I mean, that's just wrong. However, I do see it. There are some people that are very blunt and very direct, and sometimes they can just pull apart a book. But in all honesty, those reviews sell. I don't know how many times I've come across a reviewer that's been very blunt or very harsh on a review, but when I've heard what the book is about, it still intrigues me. And there's a market for anything that's out there. There is a target audience, right? So, and I've picked it up and I've absolutely loved it. So, I mean, those negative reviews, that's what I always say. They're hard to hear, but they also sell because people will still pick up. And I've actually met some people that we've talked, and they actually go and read the negative reviews first before they read the positive reviews. So, I mean, they work, they help for sure. How about you, Deep? Do you like when people come to you?
Yeah, sometimes I've had readers come up to me and go, look, I've read the first two novellas, and I've noticed that there are connections. And I'm like, yeah, they're all in a shared universe. So everything that you read, any books that you read, you'll find that they're actually all interconnected. You don't even have to pick up one or the other because they're all independently standalone, but they might make reference to characters or whatever you'd like. But I agree with Mona. When you get a negative review where someone says something on the lines of, I didn't like this, I didn't like that, and it's more of an opinion rather than going, I prefer reading psychological books than weird fiction. Then you're like, all right, fair enough, that's fine with me, but I don't really take it to heart. Like, FDR, the famous, American president, I welcome your hate type of situation. I'm not really fussed at all, to be honest. One thing I do that I have done is I don't take it to heart. Like, I don't go, oh my God, maybe I should really change my writing style, or oh my God, I should really maybe review this next manuscript because of this one person's. No, what I do now is I read someone's review, and if there's anything that I feel that's valid, even if it's an opinion, I might go, okay, fair enough. The first two novels was me experimenting with voice. I know my voice because I've been actually writing for 10 years practicing, but I only released the first two novellas only in the last couple of years. So I've been practicing, and I thought to myself, I want to do something a little bit different. I know how I write, I know my style, but let's do it this way. And it's been predominantly positive with a few minor negatives here and there, but I don't really take it to heart or nothing. To be honest, I don't care.
Well, there's always going to be negatives too, though. Like, that's totally natural. Yeah. And you haven't made it until you have negatives. So
that's right.
Isn't that
first one
that
star
true?
review?
That's right. I'm officially an author. Isn't that true? And just like Dave said, so right, La Rocca is probably selling just as many books from negative reviews as positive reviews right now, with one of his pieces that was very controversial. And I agree. I mean, you're going to have negative, you're going to have positive. It's nice to hear, that, that authors can be very relaxed, because it's hard, especially when you do review as well. Mona, you'll understand that sometimes it's hard because you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, but that's where I agree. You have to be respectful and give your reasoning for why you didn't like it, and give your reasoning for why you did like it. So the people that are watching can decide for themselves if they think that it's something that interests them and that they're going to want to go and pick up. Because you also have the books that have like the extreme amounts of hype that you go and pick up and you think, oh my goodness, there's something wrong with me because I really did like this very much.
Yeah.
For the record, he likes it. Yes, he did like that book. Absolutely. I did too. And I think I dug pretty deep in that one for the meaning behind it. But I also think that's because I know LaRocca, and Eric and I have been friends for a little while. So I'm pretty sure that's why, because I was kind of really digging deep into his thought process and what the meaning was behind the story. But that's like a whole other discussion for sure. So I do have somebody that usually jumps in here, and his name's James, and he has a wonderful question that I steal from him if he doesn't come by. And that is, how much of the story do you have planned before you put pen to paper? Should I put one of you on the spot and just pick
I'll go.
All right.
I usually plan the backgrounds of like maybe the location, sometimes a bit of the character quirks, but the plot, no. I do dot points where it's like a GPS system where I go, chapter 1, we'll start here, and I want maybe these two things happening, and then we'll see where it goes to chapter 2. So I have these little things, and I got to try to make it as organic as I can. And sometimes my characters fuck me up where they go in a different way, and I'm like, no, this is not where I want to go. And now I've put myself in a corner. I don't know how to get this really big plot hole out of the way, and then I have to go back and try to. So I let them. I know all the authors here would agree. You let your characters kind of do their own thing. You kind of you're like God in a sense, where you kind of try to steer them in the right direction. But most of the time, I just let them go and see what happens. And majority of the time, they're a pain in the ass to me.
Well, they are like real life people, you know. You pissed me off. You gotta go.
You gotta go.
Oh, I love that. Have you ever found yourself stuck at war with one of your characters, and you're like, no, you've got to go this way, but you know they're heading that way whether you like it or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
The one that I've just been fighting for 5 years, this manuscript, the Terror of Ravensmouth, and that's why I postponed it from releasing it this year, because the character really annoyed me in the way the direction of the plot was going. So I'm actually doing a massive overhaul right now. It was 35,000 words, and now I'm trying to drop it down to at least 25. So I'm trying to wipe out 10,000 words out of it.
Oh my goodness!
I'm a vindictive author when it comes to my characters. If they piss me off, I'm like, you know what? You deserve to be eaten by a bear rug.
A bear rug?
Wow.
Okay, that's probably like the most unique death that I have heard of yet.
Yeah. Grin and bear it.
Okay, well now I'm really excited to read that one when it comes out. Yeah, that's right. How about you, Mona?
I think for me, it really depends on the story, because like for the bell chime, I did not intend for the bell chime to happen the way it did. It was actually just supposed to be an anthology. And then I was like, oh, I can connect these. And then I did. And then it like everyone loved it, which was awesome. But that like was never my intention to begin with. And then like for vanilla, I knew the beginning scene and I knew the end scene, and I kind of knew how I wanted it to go in the middle. And I was like, all right, go. And then it did not happen how I wanted it to go in the middle, but I liked it better. So that was that way. And then this, the one that I wrote for, if everyone knows, like the Tor Nightfire submission that was happening in June, I wrote like a real, a novel for that one. And I knew the beginning only, and I was like, oh, maybe something good will come out of it. And I actually ended up really liking it, but I had like no idea where that was going at all. I had like a scene and I had 2 characters, and I was like, let's just go. And then the characters completely drove it. But then the one that I'm working on now is like, I have everything planned out. So like, it's really just like, for me, I think it just depends on the story. I don't know why. And I couldn't give you an equation as to which story I would outline and which one I wouldn't. I guess it's just like where the inspiration comes from and whatnot. But yeah, I'm pretty like haphazard when it comes to planning.
Hey, that shows talent as well, to be able to kick something out, whether it's planned or not. That Tor Nightfire, I have so many authors that had put in something to that or submitted to that, and I'm like crossing my fingers. But I can only imagine how many submissions or entries they had with their work over that short period of time. Oh my goodness, to sit there and to be the editor or to the approving or marketing managers, all the rating that they're going to have to do. Man, I need to go work for a publisher. What am I doing? I need Could you imagine reading for work and to be able to to devour all these delicious stories and to get paid for it? Oh man.
Oh, you'd be great at it. Go for it.
Yeah.
That would be like the life right there, to send my kids off to school and be like, okay, time to go to work, crack open a book, give it a good sniff, and that would be it. I would
Yeah.
I just want to say hi to Emily here quickly that popped in. Hey Em, thanks for coming by. And Juicy, thanks for coming by and hanging out with us. Before we jump into Amy and find out her answer for this question.
Well, for me, it also varies with the piece that I'm working on. I've had a couple of poems published, and they're actually just one-offs. They usually don't need edits at all. So my muse just is like I'm channeling my muse. It's kind of awesome. For some of my stories, I'll start with the title, or I'll start with a place or an expression. And like a story I just finished, it hasn't found a home yet, but it's entitled Skeleton Crew, and it's my take on corporate America. I don't like corporate America, is all I'll say. But, the poem Water, Water Everywhere, Not a Drop to Drink, that's the... there's a name for them. They're not epitaphs, but what you see below the title, but that's the one I use for that story, Skeleton Crew. And my novellas, I don't outline per se, but I keep notes. Like I had 6 pages of notes for a dystopian novella that is under consideration with a publisher, so I can't say who, but my muse, like Mona's, is I don't want to say fickle, but it varies.
Absolutely. No, that's really interesting. And sometimes, figuring out the title, I would assume, would kind of start to write the story in itself. Once you've started, things kind of flow from there.
Well, sorry for cutting. Go, Amy.
Okay. Oh no, I was just going to say absolutely, but I have gone back and changed titles after finishing a story if the second title seems to fit better, personally. So
it's like naming a child. You pick out a name before they're born, and then you're just hoping that when they come out, they're going to suit that name.
That's exactly. You want it to fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just going to say that I'm not sure if the other two have done this, but I know writing, you get bored, so you have to entertain yourself to the best of your ability. I know I slip in jokes that only I will get into my stories just to keep myself sane. Like the title, The Overbridge, it's just, no offense, I love the title, but when you're crossing the bridge, you're going over the bridge. I mean, that's how like my humor was, like overbridge. No one's going to really pick on it, but for me, it's hilarious. It's over water, you're going over a bridge. And a lot of people never picked up on my joke. A lot of people thought it was a reference to Stephen King's The Overlook Hotel, and I said that I did take the over bit as a joke. So you just got to find things that will entertain you, and sometimes maybe you've written short stories or novellas or novels where something's in your real life that entertained you or inspired you, and just slipped it right into the story. And maybe some people will get it, maybe some people won't, but it's there for you. And sometimes I chuckle to my own books, and I'm like, so dumb. Why did I put that in there?
Oh, I should have told you that when I read that title, I started singing the song "Can't Go Under It, Can't Go Around It."
Like, look at this. Don't trust bees. Come on. That was me having fun for myself.
Oh
That's
man,
an intriguing title, because I wonder why. What are they doing in your book that is so untrustworthy?
Well, I guess because bees are very popular species, and they're always in the media about saving the bees, and people love having bee tattoos. And I thought, what if they're shady little fuckers and we don't know? What if they are actually bad omens you don't realize, and we're surrounding ourselves with all these little, you know, trinkets and emblems and tattoos, but they're actually, you know, curses and associated with the negative forces that are around us.
That's cool.
Ah. Mm-hmm.
You know,
You
but
get really deep on that.
Yeah.
Dave.
No,
So cryptic.
no, like I think all of us probably have done something like that. Like I know for me, I love putting things like jam, German references, and of course bees. And I just thought, you know, I'm going to try to carry this on throughout every story I write or every novella I write. Makes, you know, obviously change it up a little bit, but it's the same thing. Like, you know, something smells like jam, or the wallpaper resembles stripes of bees. So that's
wow, clever.
That's my thing. Being an English teacher, you're always like looking at what the author is writing about and why they're doing motifs or why they're doing this. And I thought, you know, why not just have fun for myself?
Now when I dive into the rest of your work, I'm going to be really trying to like pick apart those things and find them and see if I can challenge myself and send you messages and be like, is this it? Was this one?
Decoding, yes.
You're gonna regret saying that, because now you're gonna get tons of messages from me next time I'm reading one of your pieces, and you're like, God, Nikki, just shut up.
Well, you know how you were about reviews. I know one reader contacted me and said to me, why was the longest title of your short story the shortest story in the whole thing? So like, I'll read the title for you. The Day I Saw My Friend Die Whilst I Ate Candy. And it's only like 50 words. That's just like flash fiction. And then one day I was bored and I just wanted to have fun. I just thought it'd be funny.
You got to entertain yourself while you entertain others.
I think look, I'll be honest with you, I'm very playful. I know the book world can be very unique and different. It's beautiful. The book horror community can be very beautiful as well. And, you know, I don't want to be one of those serious authors. I don't want people to take me too seriously. Like I might write stuff that is serious, and I'm not sure, you know, Mona and Amy, I would love to hear your side and your point of view. But yeah, I want to write for fun. And, you know, I like writing easy reads instead of really, you know, complex prose. You know, so everyone can read it. Even actually, I could tell you this. My friend bought my novels, you know, to support me, but it's his children who are like 9, 10, 11, 12 that are actually become fans of the books, and they're actually waiting for the next books, and they've shared it with their friends. So I found a weird market because it was mainly meant for people who are older, kids as young as novels or novellas.
Be like the next Stein. Goosebumps.
Do you guys like writing for fun too, or do you guys do more of the serious?
I think like for me, when I write a story, and especially since, as I said before, I take my inspiration from situations and I try to like elicit, I think it's like a great vehicle horror can be to like get a message of like, hey, this is a thing that we do to people every day and it's unfair. And let me show you why that's unfair and make you upset. And like for that reason, you pay more attention maybe to life and change the world for a better place. But I definitely like, I think on like a micro level, I do insert my humor into dialogue. I have like very dry, sarcastic humor. So if I write like a scenario that's funny to me, it's going to be only in my humor. I wouldn't know how to like do it any other way. And that like I do reread, like I wrote a short story recently that's actually going into an anthology, which I'm really excited about. But in there's a piece that is altercation between a couple characters, and like one of the characters just like goes off and says something that I find hilarious, and every time I reread the piece now, like I laugh at it, even though like I wrote it and I know what's happening. I'm like, that's hilarious. So I definitely think like just in terms of injecting my own humor. But yeah, now that I have 2 publications and I kind of made like worlds around the characters within those 2 publications, I've noticed that in my coming works, I kind of reference them once in a while I can, just as like an Easter egg. And that's fun for me. And then also something to be like, oh, if a reader like comes up to me and sees it, I'm like, oh, you like cared enough to know, that's really cool, you know? So definitely there are things that, and I agree totally with Deep, there are things that authors do just to like keep ourselves entertained and also just like see the types of reactions that readers will get, who's not to say that like everyone isn't paying attention or whatnot, but like who's like really a fan that's like paying attention and seeing these things. Or I just know for myself, like it's cool too, to like have these interconnected pieces and our own humor and all that stuff.
And sorry to interrupt. Along the same lines, I do something similar. I like to throw some puns in some of my stories if it fits. Doesn't always fit, but like Mona, I do drop a couple of Easter eggs that a line from a previous novella or novel or short story that ties into maybe another story, but it doesn't have identical characters. It's just fun for me, like Deep and Mona were saying.
Well, it is fun, and it's very it's really for the reader, they feel like they're really taking, I'm losing my words. There's a certain word that I'm looking for that's not coming off the tip of my tongue here. Interactive. It ends up being really interactive for the reader, because if they can find those little Easter eggs, or if they can pick out the humor and match it to the personality, it's a lot of fun. That's one huge reason why I love doing these shows, because even if I have an author on where I haven't had the chance to be able to read their work yet, or haven't had the privilege yet, sometimes getting to talk to the author, get to know the personality, when you finally do get a chance to jump into their work, you can really pick those things out, the humor, just the personality traits. And sometimes it just, I don't know, it just makes the...
Oh, we lost her.
Oh, I don't know if we went over the time for the show or what happened.
Oh, does it cut her out when we do?
I think
She'll be back hopefully very soon.
There we are.
See, I was never gone. Never.
Right.
Here the whole time. Anyway, sometimes it just makes the reading, I don't know, that much more enjoyable when you get to know the author's personality. Before you jump into their work, I actually saw somebody post something a while back on Instagram saying that if you have found an author you love, never speak to them. And I thought, I don't agree with that, because I like getting to know their personality, seeing who they are. I love getting to do these live shows and share it with other people too, because then, it helps them. You'd be like, I really like Deep's personality, or Amy or Mona. And you know what? Because of that, I'm going to go pick up their work, because I think I'm really going to enjoy their writing style, because that it's going to have your guys' quirks. It's going to have your personality in there, which is always really exciting. I do have this thing here from Dave that says, Deep's comment is really interesting. Kurt Sutter, Sons of Anarchy, once said something to the effect of great stories write themselves. I've often wondered how many authors find that to be true at the character level.
Does anyone want to go first?
No, Deep, you're going. That's it.
Okay. Look, my characters are all based on actual people. They're a blend and an amalgamation of different personalities, traits that I've met in my life, because that's Mona will know this, and being in the well-being sector in my past career, one of the things is you're just really looking at people's little weird things that they might do, like playing with keys, or they don't touch their elbows on the table, and you might slip that in because you're like, that reminds me of someone. My main characters they're all male, and the reason, and that was on purpose why I chose them to be all males, because I just wanted to go, what's going on with them, with their mental health in their heads, and all the doubts and all the fears that they have, because I've read some amazing female led characters, and I'm like, I wonder what the male side would be from my perspective. So for me, like the first character is a blend of me from the Overbridge. There's a bit of me in there, and then the rest are just like I've taken from other people, put in there. So for me, that's all I can say.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, like I said, my stories are taken from real life examples, and I do, like Deep was saying, even those like little quirks that people do, like when you're playing with keys or whatnot, I do take inventory mentally of things that I see, not necessarily to attribute that character to a person that I'm inspired by to write that character, but I'll be like, oh, that's a cute quirk. Let me store that for like in the future, because I think when you add those details, even though they're small and they seem unimportant, I think it creates a character to be way more human than, it just adds that like third dimension of depth to a character, just these little quirks. But I mean, so if characters write themselves, I think I think like I because you base it off of people that you have experienced with, and then you kind of end up naturally writing in a setting that you understand and know. It's like the stories just end up carrying themselves through you because at some subconscious level, you already know the story and you already know these people that you're writing, and that'll just like lead the work.
Yeah, it makes them human, makes them relatable.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What about you, Amy?
Oh, absolutely. I do, as I hinted on earlier, I do base a lot of my characters off people I've known in real life, whether it was ex-boyfriends or people I knew in college or family. I have to do a better job of masking the family when they turn into characters. But one of my characters is the medical examiner in one of my crime novellas, and he chews gum at the crime scene. You know, and that makes some people squirm, even me, because some of them do the opposite. They put vapor rub on their nostrils so they won't smell, or cops do that so they won't smell the decay of death. You know, I haven't smelled like a dead body when it starts decomposing, and I could only imagine the stench. I think I must have Googled it for description. I'm big on research for stories. I have a couple stories where there are guns involved, and early on I said that a particular gun had a safety on it, and it didn't, and someone called me out on it at a convention. So that was embarrassing. So yeah, so now I do my research. I do my research on manners of death. I have in an unpublished novella, my dystopian novella, some of the characters die by arsenic poisoning or cyanide, sorry. And I actually looked up what it does. It suffocates you from the inside out, as I recall. And it also has an interesting color. It's like almond colored, so that comes into play. My dystopian novella is also centered around food. I don't want to reveal the title because it's out with the publisher, but it's actually very timely. I wrote it over 5 years ago. I wrote it before the previous president, the last Republican we had in the White House, but the lead character of my novella is kind of a tyrant, and he loves sushi and sashimi, and that comes into play at the end, is all I'll say. So I like to foreshadow a lot of events. Like I took some screenwriting courses in college, and if you use something in the first act, whether it's a cane or cyanide to poison a character, you have to follow through in the final act. So I follow that convention in my writing, and it works well.
I couldn't imagine if one of your guys' laptops was confiscated by the police, FBI, what have you. Like, I couldn't imagine the things that they would be seeing and that they would be trying to hold against you guys just based on your search on Google.
Premeditated. Over 20 premeditated murders.
You'd also be surprised how many Google searches I do for definitions of words that I should know. Like they'd also be like, this person's a fucking idiot. Like, why?
Yeah.
You're lucky.
Right.
If they looked at my laptop, I think they'd be concerned that I was really looking into the whole Taliban Afghan thing in Afghanistan, and my beard does not help me right now, so I do not want to be profiled.
Oh my god.
Oh man. Well, this is proof here. If this ever happens to any of you guys,
FBI
you can
agent.
show them this.
Yeah.
It's for research purposes only.
Yes, exactly. Correct.
Well, we have gone past the hour mark, so sorry, Andreas, thank you for popping in here. I saw you pop in there, but I didn't want to interrupt anyone. Thank you for always promoting and sharing these live shows on Twitter as well. It means the world to me. Emily says that she agrees. Knowing the author makes the reading experience more fun. Yeah, absolutely. You get to pick apart those personality traits, and it's almost like you feel like you know the person that's wrote it, and you see these characters and you see where they're coming from, which is really exciting.
Well,
And then,
jump in there. Sorry. So I just wanted to say I agree with that statement, and like with Mona, I bought a few of her books as gifts for friends, and the reason why is because
Oh.
for me, as I've said before, I've moved away from big publishing horror books and moved more towards buying indie horror books for friends, because I feel like, no offense to any big authors out there, but it's more unique voices and probably less editors getting involved in interference and kind of saying this is not going to sell in the market. And so I've read some amazing novellas by indie authors. Mona's one of them. I actually have her novels or novellas.
You can see all the
and
smiles, the blushing happening.
yeah, and there's many more. And sorry if I don't name you all because my brain's I didn't get to bed until 6 a.m. and that's when I messaged you at 6:30 going, when are we doing this?
Wait, that's just when you were going to bed? I thought you were like just going back to bed. Oh my goodness.
But yeah, like I do agree, when you know the authors and you follow them on Instagram or any social media and you see their quirks or the way they might leave a video, yeah, you kind of go, hey, they're pretty cool. I want to read what they write.
Yeah, no, I agree. I connected with Mona through Billy a long time ago on Instagram before she had released her thing. And she said, when it comes out, would you be interested in like reading it, maybe reviewing it? And I was like, no, girl, I'm going to buy it when it comes out, because you make that friendship, you make that relationship. And let me tell you, and I know you've actually said this quite a few times, I think you even said it in your author spotlight with me, Deep, is that the authors that I get to have like some type of friendship with, or I get to know and chat with a bit, knowing those people or having that like some type of connection makes me want to read their book and review it even more than somebody that just kind of drops in out of nowhere and is like, here's a link to my book. Are you interested in reading it? And they just disappear, right? Because then I'm just kind of like, listen here, like it takes a lot of time to read the book, film a review, edit it, upload it. Yeah. So, I mean, the people that are like, hey, how are you? How's your day? Or like, just have a nonchalant conversation with you out of nowhere that has nothing to do with, well, have you read my book yet? I mean, those are the people that I want to support even more. I mean, gosh, my son and I were asking Deep the other day what the future was like, and we got into like pineapple on pizza and everything. So
Hawaiian pizza, yes.
Or the Scream 5 killer.
That one was the best. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I was gonna say I'll get you to repeat that, but I don't know if it would come out as funny now as it did then. It was kind of funny. My son looked at me, he's like, what? And I said, I get it. You don't get it. You haven't seen the movie. You'll get it when you watch it. I want to say hi to you, Mr. Morningstar, for coming in. Thank you for coming in here and hanging out with us. And thank you so much. I love doing these chats and getting to know everyone. I want to say hi to James as well. Thank you for coming by. This is the wonderful James that I stole his question. Sorry, James, I stole it again. So you'll have to come back and watch the replay if you want to get your answer. But we will be heading off now because it is Sunday night and I know that there's work and other responsibilities for people tomorrow. Deep's on holidays. It's already Monday for him. He's on holidays and his birthday's coming up. So happy early birthday.
Yes.
Thank you. Wish that I get my black hairs back.
Yeah, I guess they do have like beard dye and stuff, but then I mean you get rid of the natural, so just leave it the way it is.
Yeah, I'm not dyeing my hair.
I was gonna say the gray shows the wisdom. I love the salt and pepper
I
look.
skipped gray. I just went from black to white.
Oh.
Hey, there's that salt and pepper look. I mean, that's all the rage.
It's distinguished, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Emily.
I feel like I should have already got my first grade by now, and I'm still searching for it. And people are asking me, why are you wanting it? And I'm like, because I feel like I'm old enough to have them, and yet I still don't have them.
Oh, it's like a rite of passage, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Embrace the gray. Yeah. Absolutely. Emily, you're absolutely gorgeous and she's got gray hair and it just looks so good on her. So here I'm like, forget color the hair. Let's get the gray going. When's it going to happen? So to end off, if you guys don't mind, I thought that this would be a perfect way to end off the show. Dave did ask if maybe everyone could suggest what would be the best piece to start off with for your work before we wrap up the show.
I can go first. I mean, I only have 2 publications and I think like my opinion on my works are that, they're both so different. One's a novella and one's a fast-paced thriller, and it's only like 150 pages. So like I did a convention last weekend, and people would ask me like, oh, what are these books like? And I was like, if you like something fast-paced and thriller-esque and psychological, like this one's the one for you. If you like more of like a slow burn, like more character study, more modern Gothic, this one's for you. And it's more so just like those are the difference in between the two books. I wouldn't say which one to start off with. I think Belchime is my most popular one. But what I was saying before, just to like rehash on that, is that I think everyone has their own style that they enjoy. And I don't necessarily think that you're going to love both of my books. And that's totally understandable. So for me, it's, if you like fast-paced thrillers, it's the Belchime. If you like slow burn modern Gothic, it's Vanilla. And then, yeah, enjoy.
Maybe you'll love both, and then you'll be hooked,
yeah, and
that will be it.
That's, of course, awesome, too. I want you to love both, but, going on with the understanding that they're both so different.
Well, Mr. Morningstar says that your books sound right up his alley, so maybe it's time to pick up a copy and read it on your channel, because Mr. Morningstar also has a fantastic channel with some great reviews. So, yeah. Do it up. Maybe we could plan a buddy read, because I've had the Belchime sitting on my shelf forever.
I like their icon, this little like demonic thing going on.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right?
Yeah, so it's a pentagram. Yeah.
That's sick.
That's my birthmark.
Everyone's going to be jealous. It's too funny. Who wants to go next? Where to start with your work?
I could go, if that's okay, Deep. Like Mona, it depends on what the reader's into. If you're feeling hungry, go for my cannibalism story. The one I mentioned in Flashes of Hope, Perishables. And if you're looking for something more substantial, my story Cold Comfort in the One That Got Away anthology. It's got a lot of twists. It's got a dual meaning with ties that bind. There's infidelity. There's a twist ending. It's set in New York City in the winter. So the snow is a character. The neighborhoods are a character. Both the Upper East Side, which is very hoity-toity, very laid back, and also the Upper West Side, which is more hustle and bustle and more creative types. And that story, actually, I wrote it when I was getting over an ex-boyfriend. I thought he was the one who would marry. We would get married, and it didn't pan out. So I was kind of grieving, and writing the story Cold Comfort was one way that I was grieving the loss of the relationship. So yeah, it's very deep.
Sorry, I was listening. I was just like, I was getting all excited. I'm like, yes, a buddy.
Right. Yeah, right on. Or if you like poetry, the last point, sorry, Deep, is in Hell's Mall, I have a poem. It's entitled Orange Julius. I don't know if anyone else grew up with that drink, but it's an iconic, sweet, frosty treat. And my poem is set in a mall, but there's a lot of mayhem that ensues. I don't want to give too much away, but a lot goes on. It's like under 200 words, but yeah.
We like mayhem for sure. Absolutely. Mr. Morningstar, yes, I am down for a buddy read. Let's chat about that, and let's do that up, because there's nothing better than buddy reads and getting to read it with someone and to really be able to gush about it and chat while you go through it. And it also holds me accountable for actually getting the reading done.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
Puts that extra pressure on there. How about you, Deep? Where should people start with your work?
If you like mystery atmospheric, The Overbridge. If you like more, I guess, more towards the weird fiction, then I would say Broken Rock. And then there's obviously the short stories if you like a quick read and you just don't want to invest too much time. As Neil Gaiman would say, short stories are amazing. It's like a little quick journey. You look through the window, you see what happens, and you come back home right in time for, having tea. So, so it's really, I guess it's, I go with Mona. It depends on what your taste is, because I can say this, but then you might go, I didn't like it, but I prefer the other one. So Depends on which, I guess, genre or subgenre you like. Mystery, I would go with the Overbridge, but more weird fiction, borderline cosmic, go with Broken Rock.
Absolutely. I don't know anybody that would be wanting to rush through your guys' work. Once they read one, they're going to want to read the rest of them. So just pick them all up. Just, get your hands on everything you possibly can and then read them. And then, yeah, we'll go from there. Well, perfect. I can't thank you guys enough for coming to spend time with me. Dee, Mona, I have gotten to know you guys for, at least a year or two between the two of you. Amy, I got to connect with you with this as well, and I've got to know you and what work you have out there. I have one of your pieces in an anthology that I'm looking forward to reading, The One That Got Away, which is from Kandisha Press, and Jill is just a sweetheart, so I can't wait to dive into that one.
Too. Yeah, she's a dynamo. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it. It was
absolutely.
Fun story to write.
Well, then once I've got to read it, then it just steers me into, finding more of your work. So, I mean, these are just lovely to be able to talk to people that I've gotten to know over the years, and then to be able to meet new authors to me that puts them on my radar. This is why I love doing it. So thank you guys so much for coming on and spending the time with me, taking the time out of your Sunday evening or Monday morning for Deep, because he's in the future.
Great.
And you guys are welcome anytime. Just let me know if you've got something that you want to get the word out for. And we'll figure something out. And yeah, thank you guys so much. And for everyone coming in the chat and hanging out with us, thank you so much for asking the questions, whether you came and hung out with us live or whether you're here after the fact. As I mentioned before, I'll be going right as soon as we close this off, and I'll be putting in everyone's social media links. You can go check them out, give them a follow, send them all the love, go pick up their work. And of course, once you've had the time to read it, please put out reviews. Amazon, Goodreads, get that stuff up. If you've got a YouTube channel, Instagram, TikTok seems to be where it's at now if you want to get promoting. So yeah, absolutely. So thank you guys so much, everyone coming. Thank you for coming on in here. Dee, Mona, Amy, it means the world to me. And
thank you so much for having us and organizing.
Thank you.
Yeah,
absolutely. Can you tell I'm Canadian? Like, how many times do you have to say thank you before you're like, hey, see you guys, bye. Perfect. I will talk to you guys all later.
All right, take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.